Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's KVA. Happy May the 4th to you, any of you Star Wars fans out there. Yes, today we're going to be talking about the what's new in Inventor 2024. A little bit about me. I am the Design Automation Practice Lead here at KETIV, and with KETIV for a little over a year and a half. Previous to that, I was at Autodesk for 10 years, working as a solution architect and implementation consultant. I have over 25 years of 3D design experience, worked for many different companies, working within 3D design on many different applications, very familiar with the principles around design best practices. I've been really engaged in the manufacturing industry for over 30 years. I had lots of experience within automotive, aerospace, material handling, mining equipment, heavy machinery, all sorts of different exposures. I'm also an Army veteran and an amateur World War II historian. So that's what I do to occupy my time. We'll get into the Autodesk Inventor 2024. What's new? As Christina stated, we got a lot of content to go over today. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. If we can't get to them today, we will either reach out to you guys or you can email us at the email addresses which Christina had mentioned. So that way we can address your questions appropriately. Before we get into this, I'd like to pop up a couple of little polls for your entertainment. So Christina, can you throw up the polls, please?
Yes, it looks like they were already up. So I'll go ahead and share the results.
All right, fantastic. So we'd like to know, what version of Inventor you guys currently using? And then, of course, do you intend on upgrading to 2024? Usually there's a policy, right, to upgrade every 2 to 3 years, just to make sure that you, as a subscriber to the Autodesk entitlements, have the availability to the latest and greatest features in order for you to do what you do better. So, if you're on 2023, 2022, you're probably taking some good advantage of the features and functionality. If you're pre-2022, then I would thoroughly encourage you to understand a little bit more around Inventor 2024, what it can do for you, and then, of course, please try to engage with us to help you through that process. We can definitely point out the better ways of going through your upgrade process. All right. And the second one here, most of you sound as if you're going to be upgrading to 2024. So that's fantastic. All right. Thank you for that information, everyone. So with this PowerPoint, presentation here, there's going to be a lot of static slides that we're going to talk about. And then at the end of each section, there's a series of videos that we'll be playing to kind of highlight some of those different features that we're talking about here. All right. So what's new in 2024, Inventor 2024? Autodesk has a routine of providing updates to any softwares that are in play right now, focusing on Inventor, obviously. There's a lot of customer-driven enhancements. So if you're part of the Inventor feedback community and you provide Inventor ideas, if you go to the idea station and put in some of your recommendations, Autodesk is constantly monitoring that. And as different features or recommendations get voted upon, they typically take the highest voted recommendations and try to incorporate those features into Inventor. So here's a small little list of the types of customer-driven enhancements that have been provided over the last couple of updates. All right. So the way that this presentation is broken out, we're going to be looking at very specific categories of features within the general kind of feature upgrade environment, part modeling environment, the assembly modeling environment. There's a new feature for finishes that we're going to be talking about in the presentation. Autodesk has provided a few updates relative to 3D annotations. Those of you that are using 3D annotations, you might find some pleasure in understanding more around those updates. In the drawing environment, there's a number of different updates that we're going to be talking about as well. Tube and pipe, there's a small updated feature there that is going to be impressive for those of you that are interested in and utilize tube and pipe environment. For all of my iLogic fans out there, there's a really interesting capability that has been enhanced within iLogic, very specific to Autodesk Vault that I'll be touching on, and then some interoperability updates as well. All right. So getting into the general enhancements for the Inventor application. Section view definition persists in the design view representation. With this release, you can easily edit the section view definition or suppress the section view by right-clicking on the view representation node and clicking section view. You can edit or suppress. So some updating in the right-click menu in terms of what you can do around your section views. Previously, you could only access section views using the context menu commands. Now the section view commands and options are added directly to the mini toolbar. So as you've noticed over the previous releases, Autodesk has been updating the UIs and the different toolbars that you interact with different functions and features. This is kind of to align with that initiative of updating the look and feel of Inventor for users. In terms of graphics enhancements, there's a control section view end cap preview during section view plane dragging. So as you drag the section view, you're going to see additional information to assist you in your section view functions there. So end cap visibility is set by default to display end caps for sectional geometry when the part count is less than 500. If the part count is greater than 500, then the end caps will not display. And this is for performance reasons, right? We want to minimize some of that graphical information that we're being presented so that way you have a better performance experience when using Inventor, okay? So you'll see there's an opportunity to check a box and to turn on end caps or not turn on end caps. Other things relative to graphics enhancements, there's a resolution maximum now set by 16K, 16K. There's also the availability of utilizing image-based lighting styles when you're working within Studio. So if you want to do a photorealistic rendering of something that you've produced inside of Inventor, you can pull in a background that gives you a more realistic look as that environment that you might be putting your information or your 3D data in. Okay, and there's also a ray tracing update for those of you interested in photorealistic renderings. Some other general enhancements, really around setting ortho faces. You'll see that inside of your application options, there's another button for your projection views. So now you have an opportunity for ortho faces to turn on and off, setting right within your application options. Okay. In terms of hotkeys, I'm sure there's a few of you out there still using hotkeys to quickly initiate different commands. There's a new one for the joint command. The J key is a default hotkey now for if you're using joints in conjunction with constraints within your assembly environment. Okay. When it comes to working with substitutions, if you're really the kind of company that's utilizing large model design, if you have a lot of different parts and you leverage substitutes in order to enhance that performance of those large models, there's a way to flag now within the context menu if you create a substitute, if it's a substitute or not. So you have a little bit of visibility as to which one of your models are actually substitutes as opposed to non-substitutes. So this change affects primarily part documents. Whenever you have a new part document in the context menu, it'll let you know if it's a substitute or not. So once again, better communication and visibility. Within your general enhancements around your guided tutorials, there's the home experience is a little bit updated, so you can peruse and navigate through your guided tutorials a little bit better. So that way, if you're trying to access very specific information to learn how to do particular functions or activities, the user experience here is greatly improved for you to be able to find the information that you're trying to access. All right. So over the course of the last series of releases, performance has been a big issue, something that Autodesk has been really trying to focus on. In Inventor 2018, 2019, you'll see the entire life cycle here of performance improvements over the previous releases. So in 2024, we're focusing a lot in terms of performances around interoperability, graphics, and the ever so demanding patterns, working with different patterns within our part environment as well as our assembly environment. All right. And here's a video around the graphics area.
In the application options, it's now possible to set perspective with ortho faces as the default display appearance. We've also improved the sectional view tool to add an end cap toggle. This helps you to see more clearly which solid items the view is directly cutting through. Another cool feature is the ability to rotate a sectional view. Click the toggle button in the mini toolbar and then use the in-canvas overlay to rotate the cut. This is also supported in 1/4 and 3/4 sections. We've made it much easier to create your own IBL environments. Simply create a new style, click Upload Image, and then select the HDR image you want to use. There are hundreds of different HDR images on various third-party websites for you to choose from. And if you prefer to use Inventor Studio for your rendering, we've increased the maximum render resolution to 16K. All this and much more in Inventor 2024.
All right. So as we go through each one of these sections, there's going to be a few of these small little 1 or 2 minute videos kind of demonstrating some of the features that we're talking about. So part modeling enhancements. So some of the things that we need to be focused on in terms of the part modeling environment. There's been some enhancements around sheet metal profile definition. So as you have different profiles, closed loop profiles within your sheet metal sketches, there's a better performance in terms of being able to detect which profile you actually want to utilize within your sheet metal face. When it comes to parameters, this one's popular for me. Because of the fact that I thoroughly promote parameterization of all models, particularly if you're going to be using automation. There's now a way for text and Boolean values to be exported. So that way we can use parameters within properties that are relative to text and Boolean parameters. We also have an option for true, false, 0, 1, or yes and no, as well as a new data type, a unit type for parameters that has to do with hardness. So hardness is a brand new unit type added for Inventor 2024. This allows hardness to be specified in the finish command, which we'll get into here in a little bit, but can also be used on its own. So if you have some sort of property information that needs to understand the finish hardness, we can pull that over from parameters to properties, so that way you can use it within downstream systems if necessary. The mark feature. So new behavior around the mark feature. We have an opportunity to have it aligned, or we can have it where it goes across the surface, as well as rather wrapping around the surface or projecting to a non-planar face. So additional functionality around the mark feature.
The parameters window has 2 new improvements in Inventor 2024. The parameter window extends export functionality to text and Boolean parameters in the user parameters section. This allows us to access parameters in other places, such as the iProperties, where we can insert them as part of a live description, or simply display them in the custom iProperties tab. Autodesk Inventor 2024. We introduced the mark feature in Inventor 2023, allowing you to laser etch or mark parts. We've now improved that in 2024 by adding a behavior section to the property panel. In addition to being able to etch in 3 different directions, there are now 2 different marking methods. Project will apply the mark across all faces in its path, even if they are not coplanar. We've also added the ability to wrap a mark. This allows the mark to be wrapped around corners or be applied to curved geometry, such as shafts or cylinders. And here are those same marks in the flat pattern. So that's the mark feature in Inventor 2024.
All right. So a couple of enhancements there in the part modeling environment. Now on to the assembly modeling environment. So enhancements here in assembly modeling. So this is an interesting one. If any of you are using bounding boxes to understand, spatial requirements of those the 3D data that you may be producing. Now there's an oriented minimum bounding box opportunity here. So oriented minimum bounding box, you can derive a solid body as an oriented minimum bounding box. The new option is added to the options tab of the derive part, derive assembly, and make part dialog boxes. So you're only going to see it in those particular dialog boxes. By default, the option is checked. Uncheck the box to derive a body as the orthogonal bounding box. So as you rotate your different components, the bounding box will rotate with it, as opposed to saying oriented to everything else relative to the environment in which you're working in. Now, I don't know all the exact benefits of this. I would assume that it would really have to do with understanding a true value when it comes to the amount of space that individual components or assemblies may be consuming. Different pattern enhancements, particularly around circular pattern. So you can now select a revolved face, a cylindrical or conical face to find the direction for a component pattern. So the pattern component command uses the face axis to determine the pattern direction, use the standard controls to then flip it back and forth. It is not necessary to activate the selector when using the origin axis. Clicking the flyout activates the selector and chooses the selected axis. The direction selection does not change with the activation of the selector. You must also select a new direction. So it's prompting you for some additional information just to make sure that the circular pattern is working the way that you have anticipated. Okay. There are some content center enhancements. When it comes to authoring custom content center information, you now have the opportunity to define your thread direction. So aside from type and designation and class and pitch, there's the new opportunity of being able to provide a thread direction as well.
We've added several new workflows in Inventor 2024. So let's take a look at oriented minimum bounding box. These are 2 identical cubes, except one of them has been drawn at 45-degree angles. If we apply a standard bounding box to them both, the green cube takes up more space than the blue cube. This is because the envelope is drawn in relation to the origin of the part. If we use the new oriented minimum bounding box setting, we can see that the green cube now gets a rotated envelope that more accurately represents how much space it occupies. Let's take a look at this on a larger assembly. This new workflow is also supported within Simplify. When using a standard orthogonal bounding box, these parts look like they are occupying a lot of space. With oriented minimum bounding box, intellectual property can be removed whilst also giving a more accurate representation of the space required. This is particularly important when delivering an item. If a standard bounding box is applied to this linkage, we would need a shipping crate that is 1.6 meters by 1.5. However, switching to an oriented minimum bounding box shows that we only need a crate a third of that size, 1.6 meters by 440 millimeters. In addition to this, when creating a single bounding box, the edge dimensions of the area will be pushed through to the parameters window and can be used in 3D annotations or the drawing environment. All this and much more in Inventor 2024.
Fantastic. That's a really nice update to working within simplified and derived components. The finish feature. So this is a new feature for Inventor 2024, where we can apply different finish options or data to particular surfaces within our modeling environment. So the new finish feature enables you to not only specify the appearance of your parts, components, and assemblies, but also the manufacturing process, such as material coating or surface finishing. All applied finishes are listed in the new finishes folder in the browser. So there's some additional folder that's added if you apply finishes. You can reorder the finishes in the browser node, suppress them, rename them, or delete them. In drawings, the new parameters finish type category is added to the leader text and the format text dialog to enable finish information to be used as drawing notes. So if you have leader notes, you can pull that information from the finish to automatically populate that leader note. These parameters will automatically be updated if changes are made in the modeling environment. This enhances your drawing by adding additional manufacturing process information to the documentation. Each finish feature setting has a parameter with a corresponding unique name in the finish parameters category within the parameters dialog box. All finish parameters can be exported. Exported parameters are displayed in iProperties. Note that this change in iProperties does not affect the model finish feature parameters. All right. The finish feature can also, final note, can also be captured in model states, iParts, as well as iAssemblies. So just to check that out, if you've been looking for an opportunity to find some finish information within your models, now you have that available in Inventor 2024. This is kind of a snapshot of the different dialog boxes where you're going to be able to access this information in terms of appearance, your material coating, if there's any heat treating involved, any surface texturing, and then of course, any painting that you want applied. So you have different types here that you can toggle between and then input the specific finish information. And once again, this will carry over from your 3D models into your 2D drawings. Here's a closer look at the finish tool, new in 2024.
Appearances are a great way to colour our parts, but they don't tell us anything else about the manufacturing process. With the new finish feature, appearances can be combined with rich data to describe the manufacturing process. In the new property panel, we can apply material coatings, heat treatments, surface texture, or just paint it. We'll demonstrate adding a heat treatment. A drop-down allows you to choose a specific process. This could be case hardening, for instance. And then we attach an appearance to it. Descriptions can be added, and then of course, the hardness, which is a brand new unit type for Inventor 2024, and supports many different units, such as Brinell, Vickers, or Rockwell. Then simply select the faces to apply this finish to. In the browser, there is a brand new folder created called Finishes, where we will see a list of all finishes applied to the part. This means we get a really great overview of the processes required for this part. And if we hover over the finish, it will highlight the areas of the part that it is applied to. Model states are also supported by the Finish tool. So when we switch between model states, we can suppress and unsuppress finishes. Also note that some value input fields also support applying a tolerance. For the second model state, we'll just paint it. Choose the process from the drop-down. This could be powder coat, spray, roller, or any other method. Pick the appearance and then enter a description to be used later on in the drawing or 3D annotation environment. The paint thickness can also be specified. Choose the faces to paint, and that's the base coat for this plate. Using the same model state, we're now going to layer a second process on top of that. This is something we couldn't do before with standard appearances. Apply the final coat of paint and add some notes. And then again we'll pick the faces we're going to paint. You'll notice that when I click OK, the blue paint will override the primer in the graphics area, and that's because finishers respect the browser order, so the finish at the bottom will always be the one that is visible. And of course, these finishers are controlled by the model states. All values entered into the finish command are accessible from the parameters window, so we could use the values in here to calculate how much paint we need for an entire frame. And in the drawing environment, or model-based definition, we can retrieve the finish information. A new type category in the leader or general text box allows you to choose any of this finish manufacturing information, allowing it to be automatically updated whenever a change is made. And by stacking these notes together, we can show the full manufacturing process in a single note, making it much clearer how this is to be made. All this and much more in Inventor 2024.
I think that one is a big one, guys. I've been saying it for many years, when it comes to working inside of Inventor, whenever we're working and developing our information, there are some things that we just typically don't model. If there's fluid involved in a particular tank, we won't add that fluid. In some cases, if there's paint involved within some sort of design, we don't add that as well. We don't account for that. Now we have the opportunity to be a little bit more thorough, as well as comprehensive in terms of identifying the information we need to convey, not only in our 3D models, but also in our 2D documentation. So I think that's a really interesting feature, and it's going to help out in terms of capturing the reality of our 3D designs. Thinking about what else we can do around 3D designs, 3D annotation enhancements. There's a couple small enhancements here relative to working within 3D weld symbols. So 3D weld symbols are now available as one of your 3D annotation types. Create and edit weld and sub-weld symbols in a part or assembly model. Then retrieve those associative symbols within the drawing. So 3D weld symbols are included in exports to 3D PDF, DWF, as well as shared views. Additional 3D annotations also have to do with working with envelope requirements, as well as there's been an addition to the 1:5 scale is now available within the drop-down list that wasn't there previously, as well as the all-over tolerance option. So when you're applying your different tolerances to your different symbols, you now have the opportunity for all over as well as none and all around. Another 3D annotation update, faces are now highlighted in the thread notes. So as you select on the thread note, it's going to highlight the different faces. So you have some sort of visual representation as to which holes have a particular thread note associated to them. All right. And then here's a video talking a little bit about model-based definitions.
In Inventor 2024, we've added a few enhancements to the 3D annotations environment. When applying a linear dimension, it can now be specified as an envelope requirement. We've also expanded the annotation scales to include 1 to 5. When annotating the profile of a planar surface, it was previously possible to specify all around. Inventor 2024 adds all over to the note options. All this and much more in Inventor 2024. In Inventor 2024, once again we have improved model-based definition. On the Annotate ribbon, there is now a welding symbol option to allow you to add welding PMI information to your designs. The dialog is almost identical to the drawing environment, allowing you great flexibility over your welding symbols. Of course, as always, we can bring these notes through into the drawing environment. Remember, we don't have to use a weldment assembly for this. 3D weld symbols are also supported in normal assemblies and even multi-body part files. And with QIF or Step 242, we can export this information to other systems and viewers. All this and much more in Inventor 2024.
Some real good enhancements there for 3D annotations. Those of you that don't have a lot of familiarity around 3D annotations, I encourage you to check those out. As technology advances and as we're trying to move away from, consuming as much paper, being able to represent your dimensions and your annotations within the 3D environment as opposed to a 2D drawing can be extremely beneficial as we start leveraging more and more of these technologies. So once again, I encourage you to check those out to see if there's a place for 3D annotations within your different workflows. All right. Going on to the drawing environment. So there are a few enhancements here relative to the drawing environment. One of those has to do with being able to provide the sheet name. So whenever you're doing formatted text and we want to understand the different sheet properties, previously we had sheet number, sheet revision, and sheet size. Now we have sheet name as well. So just extending some of that functionality around how we can display some of that information. Some other drawing enhancements have to do with being able to change the line thickness. Particularly in this one, it's around the break line layer. We can change that the thickness to match the ISO standard, as well as 2D weld symbols. They're updated relative to ISO, BSI, DIN, and GB standards. So once again, extending some of that functionality around displaying our drawings a little bit more effectively. Another enhancement has to do with drawing sketch lines. So previously we didn't have the opportunity to change the colors of drawing sketch lines. Now we have that opportunity where we can change our color schemes to the different entities incorporated within our drawing enhancements, or our drawing environment rather. Also, we have the opportunity now to apply revision clouds. So revision clouds are now on the annotate ribbon. They allow us we can now add them to our drawing sheets or drawing views, move them around, add or delete different vertices to make sure, are they attached to anything? And just like any other annotation style for formatting, this is managed within the styles editor. So additional functionality, but the look and feel and being able to navigate in the environment is going to be very, very similar. We also have the opportunity to provide an edge symbol. So this is a new feature in 2024. Edge symbols are based on ISO 13715 2019 standard. The new edge symbol command is added to the symbols panel on the annotation tab. The edge symbol style is added to the drawing style within the, so you can access it within the styles and standards editor as well. Okay. And now here is a short little video talking about some of these enhancements within the drawing environment.
In Inventor 2024, we've added another highly requested feature to the drawing environment in the form of revision clouds. Simply pick your view, draw a cloud, and create. And it's so easy to edit afterwards by just dragging the nodes. You can then go to your assembly and make your changes, such as deleting this bracket. The line color of your revision cloud can be changed in the object defaults by simply moving it to a different layer. And revision tags can be snapped to the cloud to further clarify your changes. All this and much more in Inventor 2024.
And here's a short video around edge symbol functionality.
In Inventor 2024, we've added the brand new Edge symbol command to the drawing environment. The property panel contains many different settings for customizing your symbol. Various positions can be chosen from, such as vertical direction, horizontal, or no values at all. Values can be typed directly into the images where required. There are also 3 options that can be applied: value range, all around, and a multiple face modifier. General notes can be created by clicking directly on the sheet outside of a view. Here we have further types, such as specific edges and majority symbols, supported by the options of value range or ISO standard. Again, we can type values directly into the image, and there's also a handy function for adding the plus/minus symbol. All this and much more in Inventor 2024.
All right, tube and pipe. So those of you that are using the tube and pipe functionality within Inventor, you'll be pleasantly surprised to see this update. I've heard this time and time again. Why can't we create elbows other than 45 and 90 degrees? Well, guess what? Now you can in 2024. So in previous versions of Inventor, it was only possible to add 45 and 90 degrees. Starting from this release, it is now possible to apply a custom angled elbow. So when the style with custom elbows is activated, select the custom elbows option in the route dialog and either use the curved arrow or type a value of the angle for the elbow that you would like to have. So when dragged by 45 or 90 degrees, the route is populated with a rigid elbow. Rigid elbows are placed as a standard component when dragged to other than 45 or 90 degrees. So if you're using something aside from 45 or 90, the route is populated with a custom elbow. And custom elbows are placed as custom parts. Minimum and maximum angles are defined in the custom angle column within the content center part itself. So some additional functionality in terms of being able to create new custom elbows for your tube and pipe routes and runs.
Inventor 2024 brings a new feature to the tube and pipe environment. Custom elbows are now available in tube and pipe styles. First, edit a style to have custom elbows and select a suitable elbow from the library. Normally when routing a pipe run, Inventor will only let us add a 45-degree elbow. By clicking on Custom Elbow in the new Property panel, the manipulators become curved and we can snap to any angle required, in 5-degree increments. This can be fine-tuned by simply typing in the angle required. Inventor will then add a custom angled elbow into your pipe run. This will also show up on the bill of materials, and of course in your parts list in the drawing environment, along with the angle that you chose. And finally, if you want the custom elbows to stand out, or if they are normally made from a different material, you can also do this in the tube and pipe styles. By setting the appearance to green, I can instantly see which elbows will need to be custom made. All this and much more in Inventor 2024.
That's a valuable enhancement. All right, iLogic. So some new things in iLogic for those of you that are out there developing some of your own automation using iLogic. You'll be happy to hear that now we have snippets available right within the iLogic rule editor that allows us to have interaction with Autodesk Vault. I will make a note though that this only works if you're using Autodesk Vault Professional. If you're using Vault Basic, you cannot access this within iLogic. So many of these iLogic functions, like I said, will automatically be snippets where you can do certain things like getting a file, checking in a file, checking out a file, getting the latest version, copy a file using vault numbering. So some very useful tools if you're developing iLogic code that need to interact with Vault Professional. Some other elements around iLogic is we can now insert custom content center parts. And now there's snippets available for us to be able to close and open forms. So in previous versions of Inventor and iLogic, we had snippets to open a form. So if there was a form that we had created, we can call that form and open it, but there was no way to really close it. So now we have code where we can actually define a particular iLogic form that we want to close during a particular interaction. So we can prompt a user, show up a form. Once they do some sort of event or activity, we can then call it to close that form automatically for us. So here is a short video about the Vault functionality out of iLogic.
In Inventor 2024, you can now use iLogic code directly with Vault. Inside the iLogic rule editor, there are several snippets provided to get you started, but there are many more functions available in the help documentation. Whole new workflows are now opened up, from checking your login status or the version of Vault running, right through to copying a file, applying a Vault numbering scheme, and then checking it out. For instance, I could combine this new code with iProperties to select a component in the graphics area and see a summary of its properties. We can take this a step further by creating a configurator and pushing the parameters to our parts. Then using the new Vault interaction, get a copy of all the drawings from Vault, reuse any parts from Vault that match this configuration, and then create new files for the ones that don't already exist. Then we can create new drawings to match any unique files. And finally check it all in. We then have a full copy of this configuration ready to manufacture. With iLogic Vault code in Inventor 2024, the possibilities are endless.
I will have to say that is by far the most interesting feature to me for Inventor 2024. This is something that has been asked for a long time. Most of our customers that are using Inventor are also using Vault. They kind of go hand in hand. To me, I always think of Inventor and Vault as peanut butter and jelly. They're made for each other, right? All the different files that we create, all the different dependencies and associations, we want to make sure that we're maintaining those and we're coordinating them appropriately, so that way we don't have to deal with resolving links or files that change their location or change their name. Right? We want to be able to apply as much property information as we can to our files, so that way we're not dependent upon a very long or descriptive file name in order for us to understand what kind of file we're working with. So being able to tie what we're doing within 3D design and engineering and and working with Autodesk Vault to manage all of that appropriately, I think this is definitely going to service our customers and help them out with all their activities around developing different automation routines that depend upon Vault as that single source of truth. So look into iLogic enhancements, particularly around Autodesk Vault Professional. Some interoperability enhancements, so being able to work within other systems or sharing information with other systems. So interoperability enhancements. Right now, there's some updating in both JT and steps files to include UCS on import. So we can share some of the UCS information to make sure that we have proper orientation. We also have an OBJ import. Performance when opening OBJ files has been improved. Previously, there's been some performance limitations in terms of how we've been working with some of these more neutral files. In 2024, Inventor 24, there has been an initiative to help improve the performance of working with some of these neutral files. So there's some solid edge support for 2023, as well as Parasolid v35. All right. Fusion Link. So some of you may not know this, but There's also another manufacturing design tool out there aside from Autodesk Inventor, and that's Fusion 360. So in Inventor 2024, there's some new Fusion 360 functionality available. So from within Inventor, you can send a part, an IPT file, to Fusion 360 to start creating a manual inspection of that file, as shown in this little graphic here. There's also Fusion exports available. If a change has occurred in the Inventor model state or design view used for a Fusion 360 export, you can now click Open in Fusion 360 in the Export Context menu, and you are notified that the Inventor model and Fusion 360 models are out of sync. So it gives you an opportunity to make sure that they're updated before you open that file. Okay, so some communication happening back and forth between Inventor and Fusion 360. Here's a short little video kind of demonstrating that Fusion interoperability.
Autodesk Inventor 2024 expands your Fusion workflow capabilities. There is now the option to send parts directly to the Fusion 360 inspection environment. Log into your Fusion 360 account directly from Inventor. Check the Upload folder and type a file name. Then simply click Upload to send it directly to the Fusion 360 inspection environment. After the upload process is complete, Inventor can be set to automatically launch Fusion, and you can start creating an inspection plan. Once that is complete, the inspection report can be reviewed. So that's the new inspection workflow in Inventor 2024.
All right, and I think this is about it in terms of the what's new for Autodesk Inventor 2024. So a lot of different things that have been touched. Once again, really kind of dealing with a lot around performance, graphics, and interoperability are the three major improvements for Inventor 2024. For those of you that want to participate more within the Inventor community, there are some links here. Obviously, you can't click on these links in the presentation mode here. However, you can also look these up on your favorite web browser. You can look for the Inventor feedback community. This is a way for you as users to be able to provide insight to Autodesk as to what kind of features and enhancements you would like to see. You can also go to the Inventor ideas page, where once again you can vote, you can submit and vote upon different updates and recommendations for updates for Inventor. There's also the Inventor blog site. So if you want to throw up some information about what you're doing with Inventor, or you want to know what other people are doing around Inventor, you can go there as well. There's also the LinkedIn community for Inventor. So if you are a fan of going on LinkedIn, look for the Inventor community there. You can start discussions with other individuals that are using Inventor. And then, of course, my favorite, Autodesk University. If you guys are not aware, call for proposals for Autodesk University this year is going on right now. And for the next 2 weeks, you can submit a proposal if you'd like to speak at Autodesk University, share some of your experiences and those things that you've been doing within utilizing the Autodesk products as a whole, not just Inventor, but you can also go to the Autodesk University website and find different sessions that have been produced over the previous year. So if there's specific content or knowledge that you're looking for, this is a really good resource to go to be able to find out some of that information. All right, now with that being said, I guess we do have a few minutes left here for some Q&A. Let's see, what do we have in the Q&A box here? So do finishes have their on ADSK lib file like that of appearances? That is a really good question, Mario. I do not know. Because the fact that we're seeing functionality where finishes are being stored within the browser and I do have priority to them, I'm going to assume that this is going to be information that's stored within the files themselves. In terms of if there's additional finishes, I would suspect that there's probably some XML in there that might store some of that information. However, because this is a new feature and new functionality, I would probably say that the amount of customization available would be limited. However, I don't know that as a fact, but I'd be interested in learning a little bit more around what we can do about changing the different appearances for finishes, as well as adding some custom information there. All right. Some of the other questions that have been up there. All right, really not a whole lot. What about the chat here? Nobody has any additional questions or comments around the Q&A. Oh, here's one from Jacob. From someone who is using Plant 3D regularly, do you see the advantages to switching over to Inventor? So you're thinking tube and pipe inside of Inventor versus Plant 3D. Well, I will say this much. From my experiences with Plant 3 or with tube and pipe, there is a lot of functionality available there. I guess really the big question would be, to what extent are you using Plant 3D, or what is the scale or the extensiveness in which you're using Plant 3D? Plant 3D very tailored to working within, defining very complex pipe and tube type of routes and runs. Where Inventor, because the fact that we're working a lot with a lot of mechanical and manufacturing type of information, from my experiences, most customers are using them in a limited capacity. I would think that there's some sort of threshold involved in terms of, okay, if you exceed this threshold, definitely use Plant 3D, but if you don't, you can get away with using tube and pipe inside of Inventor. I would think that's probably the approach you'd want to take. I would say in this particular instance, it's going to require a little bit further evaluation in terms of, once again, the complexity of how you're using Plant 3D, and if tube and pipe is something that could support your request in that regard. So thank you, Jacob, for submitting that question. Anything else that anybody has available in terms of questions? If not, I thank you for joining this KVA. If by chance you come up with some questions after this session, do not hesitate to reach out to us. As Christina had mentioned, we have the opportunity, you can email marketing or support at KETIV, and we'll be able to field your questions and get you a response back as fast as we possibly can. With that, thank you once again for joining. Have a great Thursday, and we'll see you on the next one.